Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to COASTER-net Update. We've got some breaking news tonight out of Sandusky, Ohio, where we've just heard the final announcement for Cedar Point's 2018 roller coaster, Steel Vengeance.
That's right.
Danny, we've been waiting for a long time. We've seen this thing been going up into the air, being converted in front of our faces, but now we finally have all of the information, all of the stats, all of the inversions, and we got the theme finally as well. So Steel Vengeance, let's start there. What do you think of the name? It's not Railblazer.
Right. Well, when Railblazer was first trademarked, I immediately said, I do believe this is the name. And the reason I said is because it's the only name I had liked that I had heard. And it was the only one that made any sense to me as far as the theme goes. You knew it wasn't going to be the ledge because that doesn't tie into anything they've been teasing. Railblazer was the one that seemed to be making it known, but we've recently heard that Railblazer had kind of been semi-confirmed by some people to be the California's Great America announcement. By the time you're watching this video, you may already know that. At this point, at the time of recording, we don't know. We have not had the Great America announcement. That's actually coming up in just a few minutes as we speak here. But I said this morning when I put in my final predictions, and I sent you a screenshot of my final predictions, and in parentheses for the name, I said Cedar Point, Rocky Mountain Construction, Iron Horse, and in parentheses where I've been putting the names that I predicted that it would be a name that has not been trademarked, and I thought it would be something that we haven't heard yet. I didn't know what it was going to be. I was trying to figure out, could it be like Desperado Run or something? I tried to come up with something silly like that, like Swashbuckler is another one I saw, and I said to myself, I have no idea. I'm not going to be able to come up with something. I hope it's something good, but it's going to be something we haven't heard before. And lo and behold, it's something we haven't heard before, and I really like it. It's better than Claim Jumper. It's better than the Ledge. It's better than any of the other stuff that we've really heard, except for maybe Railblazer. We'll see if that gets applied later on today here. But I do like the name Steel Vengeance. I think it's fitting considering the scenario here. We're converting a coaster from wood into steel, and the storyline that comes along with this ride is kind of interesting because you and I kind of had this pegged for a while that this was going to be a Battle for Cedar Point thing with the characters we've seen. But I guess the plot twist here, the thick plottins, and all of a sudden Maverick's the bad guy.
Yeah, I mean, so they produced this whole story that how these three characters, these wanted posters that we've been following for the last few weeks here.
We assume they were going to be like these bandits, these robbers. We assume they were going to be the bad guys, and like Maverick's the bad guy.
Yeah, and Maverick. So apparently these three people were the old inhabitants of Frontier Town. Maverick ran them out of town and became, the dominant force in Frontier Town, and now they're back with a vengeance, with a steel vengeance, if you will, and they're going to retake Frontier Town. So definitely, they're going to play into that Battle for Cedar Point game still. It's in the same exact art style. We see the full color pictures now. We have all that information. It's a pretty fun theme that they're going with. Also, coincidentally, everyone, and including us, were speculating that the three trains would probably be themed according to these three characters.
Doesn't appear so.
Not at all!
No, it doesn't appear so.
Not at all.
It literally looks as if these three characters are just a group of former inhabitants, and they were taken over by Maverick somehow. Because wasn't the Maverick promo like promoting Maverick as the hero 10 years ago when we saw all this? It was very, 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 very interesting. A little bit of an odd play there. I mean, it doesn't have really anything to do with the ride, but it's strange the way they promoted it. Very, very interesting here. But as Vengeance, I like the name Steel Vengeance. I think it's a good name. It's a unique name. It's not one of these names where you're going to have to say, oh, which one? You're going to know what you're talking about. The only issue that maybe I have with the name isn't the name itself. It's the fact that, once again, there's a couple rules to when you name a roller coaster, when you name a ride. You want it easy to be pronounced, which I think Steel Vengeance is something people can pronounce as long as they know the name Vengeance. But like Leviathan is one we've always talked about, how some people say it Leviathan, or, how some people call the Voyager. and that's something you don't necessarily want. You also want it to be easily spelled, and I feel when I texted you like, oh, it's Steel Vengeance, I forgot the second E in the word vengeance because it's not a usual word I use. Well, yeah, I know. So I think the interesting thing here is that it's once again one that you might have a hard time spelling,
well,
like Rougarou, Valraven, but I think this one's a little bit different.
Danny, though, in honesty, they love to add an E in Lightning Rod, and they'll just forget the E in Vengeance now.
Because the rod is being made into a lighter shade because it's being lightened. That's what's happening here. All kidding aside, I think it's a really good name. I really like the name. I think it fits into the teaser campaign as we've been talking about. You know, there's a score to settle. They stake their claim, which works itself right into the little storyline they've built here. So, you know, we've covered that. Why don't we talk a little bit about the ride? I guess we don't have to touch too much on this because as, we heard just a couple days ago from our friend Ryan, it's pretty much what he described. It's what everyone was describing. We've got foreign versions, which again is one of those 15 records that this ride is going to break, which I believe is the most records a Cedar Point ride has ever broken. I remember Millennium Force and Valraven both had 10, but when you combine the park records and the ride records, some of them are a little obscure because they're calling tallest hybrid, but then they're also going first hyper hybrid, which, okay, I get what they're doing. It's a marketing thing. That's fine. Fine. 15 world records sounds great, and the general public is going to eat it up all day long. I predicted that we'd have 10 world records. All 10 of the ones that I predicted are ones they claimed. They found 5 others to claim it. Now, the ones that I predicted were tallest hybrid, fastest hybrid, steepest hybrid, longest drop, most inversions, and then the 4 others they found were fastest airtime hill, most airtime on a hybrid coaster, most airtime on any coaster, which I think is no one's really claimed airtime. They've claimed airtime moments, but nobody's really claimed amount of airtime except for Voyage. That's the only coaster that's ever actually claimed a duration of airtime, which I'm fascinated to know how. I guess if you did it in No Limits or whatever souped up version of No Limits that these companies use to design their coasters, I'm sure you can actually get that metric. No Limits 2 will spit out an airtime metric, so I'm sure it has something to do with that. And the other one is the world's first hyper hybrid, which would go along with the tallest. And then the first 6 I had, the next 4 they came up with. I predicted 4 park records being broken, which are most steel roller coaster track at one park, most roller coaster track at one park, most rides at one amusement park, most roller coasters over 200 feet at one park. And they came up with another one, which is the most roller coasters with a first drop of 90 degrees or more at one amusement park. And here's where I just have one issue. They claim that number is 5. Steel Vengeance would be 1. Maverick would be 2. Valraven would be 3. Those are the easy ones.
Yeah.
Then you have to think a little bit. Now, if you think a little bit here, you've got Dragster would be number 4, right?
Yeah.
And then the first one that you would go to after that would be Gatekeeper because you've got the wing overdrop. And it does go past 90 degrees. It's got an inversion, whatever. But here's my thing. If you're counting Dragster as one of those, don't you also have to count Wicked Twister? So I would argue that the number is 6, and maybe because it's a shuttle, maybe they don't consider it a first drop.
Or maybe the opposite. Maybe
it was 6.
Maybe they're not counting Gatekeeper and they are counting Wicked Twister because
it's an inversion.
Yeah, I don't.
It could be, but either way, I think they could get away with 6 there.
Yeah, I think the stats that are most interesting here, because there's been a lot of speculation since that first lift hill isn't done yet, how tall that first hill was going to be. We've heard some pretty ridiculous numbers out there like 250 or 245. No, it's 205. So a lot of us were predicting like 215. It's even lower than that. It's right over 200. And also it's a 200-foot drop. So you're going to come 5 feet off the ground there. So you're going to have a nice drop there on this coaster. I think also interesting is the 74 miles an hour, making it the fastest hybrid. With a little research, we found out that, New Texas Giant is listed at 65 miles an hour. So you're going to have about 9 more miles per hour on this ride. It is a lot longer, though, because, our concern has always been, is this ride going to hold its speed until the end, being so big? Like we said on the Twisted Timber show, it's hard to tell. Yes,
it's a very catch-22 with some of these iron horses. Go ahead and finish your thought. Sorry, I cut you off there.
Well, I was going to say, you look at Twisted Timbers, you look at what Wicked Cyclone's point of view was. They always show it finishing it pretty strong. Wicked Cyclone does not do that, as is well documented. This one shows it showing it, finishing pretty strong, but you do have a lot of elements coming off that final brake run that you are going to pick up speed off that brake run. But the question is, how much of that speed is going to be carried through into the very end? Maybe there's enough elements on this one, though, Danny, before that brake run, that it will satisfy my desire for speed. Because my thing with New Texas Giant is it dies at the end, and it's a nice first half, but there's not enough in the second half to really make me rank it super high on my list. I don't even have it ranked in my top 40 rides. But this one, maybe there is enough. That first half is a pretty long first half here before you hit that brake run. There's a lot going on there, and hopefully it holds its speed. And if you can get an even halfway decent second half off that brake run, Fred Grubb went up there and said, is this the new #1 coaster in the world? How many people have already been predicting that on Facebook, just in the last few days?
Yeah, I don't understand that. And, I get that I am not.
It could be. It could be.
It very well could be. And here's my point. I'm not saying that this isn't going to be the best steel coaster in the world, okay? I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that it's not going to be an amazing ride. It's going to be an amazing ride. Rocky Mountain Construction, you and I are cynical on the show. We talk, we say certain things about RMC. We say certain things about Intamin. We say certain things about everybody, right? At the end of the day, I think there's kind of a false thought here that you and I are totally against RMC, and that is not the case at all, because you have been one to say that even though you're not a fan of Wicked Cyclone, you're not a fan of Storm Chaser, you still say RMC as many wood coasters as you want, because at the end of the day, they're better rides than they used to be. And that's the thing here. And based on the way we talk, people probably think I hate RMC too, and I do not. All of the RMC Iron Horse coasters that I've ridden, which would be Iron Rattler, New Texas Giant, Wicked Cyclone, Twisted Colossus, and then Storm Chaser. All of those, Storm Chaser is right around like number 50, and I've been on over 400 steel coasters, folks. And the others are all in my top 30. I really, really like every RMC coaster that I've ridden, and the wood coasters are right up there, pushing into my top 10, if not in my top 10 on the wood coaster list of, well over 100. So we're not coming on here to bash RMC. That's not what we're doing here, because at the end of the day, Andy, I think you and I really like the product that they give out. At the end of the day here, though, we need to relax, and we need to not claim a roller coaster as the best thing in the world when the thing isn't even finished yet. Okay, yeah. Because the problem here is when you're judging a ride off of a POV video, we got fooled with that with Wicked Cyclone. We've talked about that before. Now, you didn't like Wicked Cyclone very much. I mean, you didn't think it was world class. I mean, you thought it was fine, but didn't overly impress you. Yeah. I very much enjoyed Wicked Cyclone, but I will agree with you 100% that POV made that ride look 10 times faster than it actually is at the end of the ride. That doesn't ruin the ride for me. Wicked Cyclone is a top 10 coaster for me. I know it's not for you, and I know it's a top 10 coaster for a lot of other people. But what we need to do is not judge a ride based on the video and the animation, because you know what? If you play No Limits 2, there's a little checkbox you can check to lower the friction, make a ride go faster than it's actually going to go, okay? And you can speed up these renderings, okay? When we see how fast this ride is going to go, especially at the end of the ride, because that's something, we've talked about with New Texas Giant, it does tend to peter out a little bit at the end. I don't let that ruin the ride experience for me, okay? I think New Texas Giant is an absolutely wonderful coaster. And I think the big problem with New Texas Giant is it goes too low too quickly. And that's why it runs into the problem at the end of the ride of not being able to do a whole lot. This ride does seem like it's going to stay higher longer, and it's not going to go down lower to the ground until closer to the end of the ride, which I think is maybe we've learned something from New Texas Giant and from Wicked Cyclone and Storm Chaser. Maybe we've learned a few things here. Those rides they're not bad rides. They're great rides. They're not flawless, okay? And maybe we've learned a little bit here because there's B&M coasters that have, little nitpicky things here. I hate on Raptor all the time because it's funny here and we make fun of Raptor and Andy makes fun of Manta. And, I talk about being headbanged once in the Cobra Roll. Let me say this here. I really enjoy Raptor. It's a very good ride. I don't like the headbang in the Cobra Roll. I don't like being headbanged when I go into the brake run. But you know what? Those things have been fixed on later coasters, okay? We've learned, even the Raptor clone that's over in France or wherever it is now, yeah. They fixed that. They don't have the real rough transition back into the brake run. So, New Texas Giant was their first coaster. They're going to learn things from that, right? So maybe we've learned something here and we've learned how to make this coaster the best RMC that it can be and the best roller coaster it can be. But let's not call it the new #1 coaster based on someone earlier today before the announcement was made was trying to convince us it was a #1 coaster before we even saw the POV and said, well, we can see the ride. We don't need to see the POV. So you don't even know how tall it's going to be yet. Like, come on now. So, but, okay. So we got that off the board. At the end of the day,
you know what?
I have a question for you then. Go ahead.
Here's a really interesting concept that right now they also announce a Planet Coaster partnership that you can actually download Steel Vengeance onto Planet Coaster. I wonder if we can test it out in Planet Coaster to see how fast it's going at the end.
That's what I'm interested to see because we know that the RMC animations tend to look a little faster than the ride actually rides, which is fine. People do that all the time, especially for promotional material. But I'm going to be interested to get that other laptop out a little bit later and download this and see what we can do here because I'm really excited for this. Here's my question, and I guess we're not talking a whole lot about the ride. For the simple fact that we've talked so much about it,
yes.
We know so much about it already, because nothing really surprises us. There's not a tilt track, there's not a launch, there's nothing that we didn't expect. So here's what I'll say to you. You've got Maverick. I think you and I agree. Maverick #1 at Cedar Point, Millennium Force #2, Magnum #3.
Probably.
Agreement in those three because I think that's where I come down. Well, we're discounting the Raptor thing.
Yeah.
I
would not argue with anyone who said that. No.
Okay, so at this point, with those three, with that list, does Steel Vengeance have to be in that top 3 to live up to your expectations? And my answer is, I think it does.
I think it does.
Does it have to be the best coaster in that park? Does it have to be better than Maverick? I don't think it does.
I think it's going to be very difficult for this to be better than Maverick. I know a lot of people are already saying that, but I really love Maverick. I think Maverick is one of those perfect roller coasters that has everything you want in a ride. So like we always say, to be the man, you got to beat the man. Mm-hmm. And it's going to have to be overwhelmingly better, not even overwhelmingly, but clearly better than Maverick in order, in my mind, to be better than Maverick. It might be. I'm not sitting here saying that I'm not against the idea of Maverick. I love putting new rides in my top 10, but I don't do it just on a whim either. Just because it's a new ride, I don't automatically put it in my top 10. It's not going to go there. It has to earn its spot in my top 10, and it'll be very interesting to see. It's going to have to carry its speed. It has the elements to say, yes, this is going to be a really amazing ride. It has the elements to do that. It has to carry its speed. That drop, RMC, I just rode Goliath yesterday with that 200-foot drop. This one's going to be even steeper. It's going to be fun. So the drop I'm not concerned about. It's mainly the speed and how it carries itself to the end. That's what's going to determine.
And that's a great way to put it. And we haven't really talked about Mystic Timbers much lately, especially since I got to ride it about a month ago. But I had a big debate about where I was going to place Mystic Timbers on my rankings. and I was going back and forth, Mystic Timbers Gold Striker, Mystic Timbers Gold Striker, and I couldn't decide which I liked more. And I finally decided to put Mystic Timbers one spot below Gold Striker because of that theory we have here. To beat the man, you've got to be the man, you've got to beat the man. And if I'm going to say I like it better than Gold Striker, I want to, without a doubt, be able to say, yes, I like it better. And I couldn't say that, and I couldn't decide. So I said, well, I haven't ridden Gold Striker in 3 years, and I don't. I mean, I remember it being an excellent ride, but I don't get off of this saying, yes, this is a better ride. So I'm going to stick it one spot below. That puts it at number 6, by the way, for those of you who are curious. So I think that's the proper way to look at this. I am not disappointed with anything we saw from Steel Vengeance here. I think it's going to be a fantastic ride. I think there's going to be a lot of airtime. There's going to be a lot of cool elements. The key to whether or not this is a great roller coaster or a world-class roller coaster is how that second half performs, and if we can maintain that speed all the way through. And if it does that, I think we've got an absolute winner. Yeah,
absolutely. So, I'm excited to see this when this opens next May. Once again, thank you for joining us here on this whole journey for the last few months where we've been talking about all these teasers, talking about what's happening at Cedar Point. I also can't wait to clip this show and get that video clip of Danny Miller saying that he likes Raptor. So that's going to be all over the internet, folks. Yeah, don't worry. All over the internet. Danny likes Raptor. You heard it here first. So thanks as always. I'm Andrew Bart.
I love the wing coaster over in Italy.
Yeah, right. As always, I'm Andrew Barczyk from Chicago, Illinois.
And Danny Miller, Binghamton, New York.
Right on, right, Warriors.
See you next time, guys.
Oh.